Ricky, welcome. Urban airports has received a lot of media attention in the past year. The urban air mobility market is now projected to grow by some 9% annually, reaching some 12.7 billion US dollars in the next 5 years, and up to a trillion US dollars in the next 20. Now, these are big numbers. Can you briefly explain the background and purpose of your business?
Of course, yes. And, they are big numbers, and they're quite hard to comprehend because they're so big. And, I was reading an article just on the way to our exhibition here in Saudi Arabia, which is another huge new market. And I was reading that the entire advanced air mobility market will be worth 1.5 trillion year on year as of 2024. Now, these are even bigger numbers, but the numbers are all backed up by the fact that there are over 600 companies now around the world developing this kind of vehicle, which is an electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicle. Some of those vehicles are quite small, and they'll be used for cargo drones and cargo logistics. And some of those vehicles are actually quite big, so they can carry up to 6 people. We're partnered with a company called Hyundai Motor Group, which I'm sure you and your followers have heard of. They have their own vehicle development program, which, to throw in another big number, is a program that they're funding, which is about 1.5 billion US dollars to build their eVTOL. Now, they are one of our investors, they're one of our strategic partners. And the reason why they are working with us and why they are so closely aligned with us is because they understand that in order to protect their investment and the industry's investment in advanced air mobility, there's a need for infrastructure. And so that's where we come in. With the ground infrastructure, without the digital infrastructure that connects to the customers and the future riders of these vehicles, and without the air infrastructure, the vehicles themselves won't be any use. And so that's something that I've built a business around, running an amazing team to deliver on that, to fill that gap in the market, which is the infrastructure technology.
What then are the pillars of your business, the key pillars?
So the key aspects are to design a piece of infrastructure that is viable and sustainable. And that means to radically rethink how we develop and how we integrate new smart technologies and new smart sustainable mobility technologies into our cities. And so our solution is to be one of the most, if not the most compact and ultra compact types of infrastructure for this sector. So normal kind of traditional aviation solutions rely on huge, expansive areas of tarmac and asphalt. Our approach is to really combat that by applying technology. So we are a patent-rich, IP-rich company. Our solution is a technology-driven solution whereby we can build in high capacity on a very low footprint. And the very low footprint is really crucial because where the demand is, where people are, that's where these vehicles need to come. That's the area where cities are struggling with congestion and pollution. So our first urban airport, which will be deployed for the first time ever anywhere in the world, is going to be in Coventry, which is right bang in the middle of the UK. And where it will be deployed is next to a railway station, and it's right in the middle of the city centre where 500,000 people live and work. Now, without our solution, without our technology, that will simply not be possible. There's no way using existing approaches that you could build in a new piece of electric aviation infrastructure. So by working extremely hard and being the most IP-rich company in this sector, we're able to unlock kind of useful sites, very compact sites where the people are, to provide this new layer of technology and this new layer of mobility.
Well, you've talked about the potential growth in terms of the numbers, but what sort of response are you getting at the moment? I mean, one of the notable MOUs you've actually signed is with Munich Airport. What do you expect to build between you there, and how much will this differ, if at all, from what you're going to be doing in Coventry, which, as I understand, the launch is actually in April, May of this year?
Correct, yeah. So the urban airport in Coventry opens on the 25th of April. Which again, as I mentioned, is a world first. And we're building the world's strongest ecosystem, right? So we've got Hyundai Motor Group. We have other OEMs as well that we're working with, some of the leading players globally from Germany, from the US, and the UK, of course. And it's a really exciting time. Now, the most important thing when you're developing a piece of infrastructure is that it's functional and it's usable and it's affordable. And Munich Airport, they are a key part of our ecosystem. They're one of our preferred operator partners, and they're the first kind of big airport operator to join our platform. And they are one of the best, if not the best, airport operators around the world. They operate airports not just in Munich and Germany, but all over the world, and they're seen as a go-to reference point, for other airports. And so their excitement about joining our platform, it speaks volumes, right? So they know how to operate aviation infrastructure, and they want to bring that, 50 years of experience to us to help refine our ConOps and our SOPs so that we can deliver a high quality experience to our customers, and also to make sure that our customers feel comfortable, they kind of feel familiar, but they'll be surrounded by an entirely new type of mobility system which has never been seen before. So it's really important that people trust what we're doing and trust the process. But it's not only about managing passengers and customers, it's also about managing the vehicle. So some of these vehicles are very, very expensive. And so like any other airport, we're agnostic to eVTOL. So we'll have all kinds of different vehicles once certified landing in an urban airport. And so those OEMs who build those vehicles and the air service providers who fly those vehicles, they need to feel comfortable that urban airport will be able to handle their vehicle, charge their vehicle, repair their vehicle, maintain their vehicle. And so that's where our ambition to have over 200 urban airports in the next 5 years, we need some of the world's best. So our ecosystem includes Munich Airport. It will have other airport operators as well, territorially and geographically. And that gives us that amazing kind of possibility to grow and scale really quickly and, provide that level of comfort and trust which the consumer is going to need. And we want to take the consumers with us. We want them to feel comfortable because if they're not comfortable, if they don't trust us, then the industry will take longer to reach its potential. So our goal is to build the strongest ecosystem for advanced air mobility globally.
Just going back to the points I made earlier, is that, I take it then that what you're going to be building within the infrastructure, within the ecosystem, is not a one-size-fits-all, because airports, if you are aligned with them and are located in and around an airport for accessibility and so on, and will look for something different from what you're creating at Coventry. Am I right?
Yeah, look, we have a number of different models. We have passenger air taxi focused urban airports. We have cargo logistic focused urban airports. We have urban airport solutions that can fit on rooftops, that can fit in car parks like in Coventry in very compact locations. We even have urban airports that are designed to be offshore because that's another huge, huge market. And so, our system, our core technology, we've miniaturized for our CityBox product, which is an urban airport which is about the size of 2 large SUVs, right? So super compact. And I refer to it as the future mailbox. We have one of those, and I expect to see those, on every street, in every community. Now, our system is a system that is, as I mentioned, we have lots of patents, but it is tailorable. So, you can tailor our system to meet your needs. So if you're in a market which requires, leather finishes and ultra luxury, we can do that. If you're in a market that has, different weather systems, we can design more permanent solutions, we can design more temporary solutions, but the core technology remains the same. And the core technology, whether you're a city or whether you're an airport, land value is always going to be at the premium. And where these urban airports need to go, where the eVTOLs need to go, where the demand is, it's always going to be in areas where real estate is more valuable. And so in order to unlock that potential, our core technology allows us to have a very compact footprint, but a high capacity, which means we can have multiple vehicles taking off and landing at the same time. And we can build in the MRO, which is the maintenance aspect that vehicles will need, the charging facilities. So we can manage the vehicle, we can process and manage and provide, a world-class experience to our customers. We can integrate cargo, all in an ultra-compact footprint. So that is going to be really, really important for the future. And that's why we're seeing so much interest and so much media attention, because for the first time, we'll be able to integrate EV charging infrastructure uniquely to parts of cities and parts of the world that are really struggling to cope with their traffic systems.
No, exactly. I mean, and certainly Hyundai's Supernal investment is going to fast track the creation of your 200 sites globally. Now, where do you see the greatest growth likely to come from?
So there's quite a few areas. I mean, the fact that we're based in the UK, we're very fortunate. We're backed by the UK government. And one of the attractions for Hyundai Motor Group was the fact that we were based in the UK and that we're a technology-driven solution. In the UK, the UK is literally leading the world in terms of its acceptance of this new technology. Civil aviation in the UK, we're working closely with those guys to make sure we do this safely and responsibly. And so we're working with the regulators. The regulators are working with us. So the UK is going to be a very, very hot place for this technology. But of course, as you mentioned, our connections now via Supernal and Hyundai take us to Asia Pacific, but also to the US. And the US has a number of leading manufacturers of eVTOL. The US also has, lots of issues with traffic and congestion and sprawl. And so the FAA is also working with us by the Supernal team to integrate air mobility into the US. And actually, Supernal have very close relationships, not only in the US, but also with the Canadian Advanced Air Mobility Consortium as well. And so that takes us to Canada. So North America is a huge opportunity. We can actually provide, for the first time, that zero emission journey that the world talks about but hasn't yet been able to deliver. So there are a lot of missing links in US cities, and so advanced air mobility in the US is a really exciting, huge market, and we're really pleased and really proud that we've got the support of a major US-based OEM in Supernal. But also, further abroad, Europe and Scandinavia, two very hot markets. A lot of again, some of the other leading OEMs are based in Central Europe. And there are a lot of problems there. Scandinavia, there's a lot of fractured territory that is held together with bridges and roads. And bridges and roads, they're carbon-hungry solutions. And so what we need to do to get to a net zero age, to get to carbon zero by 2030 in Scandinavia, 2050 in the UK, and 2060, where I am right now in Saudi Arabia, we're going to need to adopt new technologies. And so using eVTOL and integrating them, making them viable and making them affordable, and integrating them in a sustainable way is the only way that this is going to happen. And so those are our first key markets. We've got a pipeline that is global, and we're starting to get orders now for a number of our different models. So that's why Coventry becomes really important, because our future investors, our future customers and clients can come to Coventry. We'll host them. We'll have live demonstrations of how the drone technologies, eVTOL, how they interact with the infrastructure, and how you interact with us. And you'll have a macchiato. You'll be surrounded by, and you'll be looking at one of the world's most state-of-the-art vehicles. And all of a sudden, we're kind of breaking down those barriers, and it becomes very accessible and becomes normal. And that's our goal. Because otherwise, it will take much longer for this industry to really take off. And so our work with the UK government and Supernal so far is really pioneering this sector.
I mean, I can see in how this story unfolds that the existing larger airports will view this as being actually very complementary to what they actually offer the travelling consumer. But what about regional airports? I would have reasonably thought that the advantage to them is actually potentially greater because it is a new area for them to maximize revenues, incremental income, real incremental income.
Yeah, exactly. And airports, airports are going to be an important location for people to get to, right? And we're already seeing that. But airports, particularly in the UK, they also have to get towards net zero and jet zero. And so, but at the same time, they need us to still travel, because they need to make money. They've got a business to run. So getting people from city sustainably to the airport is a big deal. Now, airports, when we think of an airport, we think there's huge amounts of real estate. But that real estate is really valuable. There's a lot of operations that they need to consider, and it's still valuable real estate. So they're quite excited, the ones that we're speaking to, that we have a small footprint. And so we're also speaking to airports overseas, and some new airport developments budgets. Some of them don't have public transport connectivity to them, so they're reliant on road networks that need to be built. And so they're speaking to us to have landside urban airports, regional airports that want to drive more passengers, and who are trying to grow. They need to get passengers to them as well. So airports become really important, but it's where you fly from to the airport that we think is really exciting. And by having this compact footprint that's high capacity, we could see, the airport itself helping us operate our urban airports in the city. So that's kind of a really exciting opportunity, because all airports have, one location, right? Heathrow's in one location. But imagine if you could have, mini versions of them, them touching their consumers, deep in the heart of cities. That becomes a whole new game-changing opportunity for them as well from a revenue perspective. So there's a lot of potential, and airports will play a big part. But we also, we see lots of other opportunities outside of just the traditional airports.
Well, let's get into that, because, for example, if a major online business wanted to use one of your locations as a hub, could you dedicate that operation to that end and expand it to accommodate the warehousing, for example, that's inextricably linked to service their needs? Is this in your planning?
Exactly, and it is. In the last 18 months, 24 months, we've all been kind of cooped up at home. We've all been, struggling with COVID, and we've all been turning to our phones, and we've all been, turning to e-commerce. And e-commerce, is obviously booming, and all around the world, all over the world. And so, it was quite funny. I was also working at home, like you and everybody else, and working on Urban Airport for Coventry. But looking out of our window, from my office, there's a double yellow line next to the parking bays. On that double yellow line, every 2 minutes, there was a different delivery van, whether it's Amazon or FedEx or DHL or DPD, Royal Mail, one van after the other. And they're not all electric, right? And so we just thought, why don't we miniaturize our technology? And instead of those vans coming and parking, they're quite big vans. And the other similarity is quite big vans, but also what's coming out of them were quite small packages. So we thought, why don't we take that space and see whether we couldn't miniaturize that technology to create a smaller footprint, cargo-only urban airport. And that's the one that you can kind of get a glimpse of behind me. And that's the one which is getting a lot of attention from logistics companies, from cities. And that's the one that I expect to see at the end of every street, right? So that becomes the new post box. We could even paint them red. And I think what that does is that enables those big logistics companies, and and we're speaking to all of them, and they all accept that they are one of the most polluting parts of our cities, and they're working hard, through their own investments to decarbonize. And so if they can utilize drone technologies from the fulfillment centers and the huge warehouses out of town, instead of sending, fleets of vans into our cities, where we live, where our kids play, we can use drones, and some drones have a pretty decent payload. We can have faster movements of drones to carry those boxes. We can receive them safely and securely on our infrastructure. We'll process them, and then via our app, we'll send you a message, and then you will come to your local urban airport city box, and then you can collect your package. So it solves so many problems by embracing these technologies and moving with the world as we live in it today. So it's really exciting that the whole logistics aspect of our business is really exciting. And logistics with cargo delivery drones that already fly. We're partnered with a few companies now already in the UK who are selling drones, who are flying drones. One of our partners is working with the NHS, delivering high value cargo. So that already exists. That already works. What's missing though, of course, is the organized infrastructure. So when that drone lands, we need to land it safely, we need to land it securely, we need to have the air infrastructure that's coordinated and then we need to charge that drone. We might need to repair that drone. And so all of those things are really important to make a viable.
Exactly. We'll get to the logistics and the mechanics later, and some of the challenges that you're presented with. But just going back to the business model, I mean, it's clearly very agile. You have to be pretty fleet of foot trying to balance. It's like a juggling act between which bits you're going to move forward first on. But can you actually see how your business is likely to break down in terms of this is box A, this is box B, and so on and so forth? Have you actually got a plan that actually says, well, this is where we expect to generate most of our money from?
Yeah, so the key part of our business is it's infrastructure, but it's also a service. And because of that, because of the technology that we have and the compactness of it, it's also a product. So the conversations we're having are led by sales. Cities, private developers, healthcare businesses, they want to buy in the dozens, in the hundreds. We have some announcements coming soon. Some of our infrastructure units, and then once they've bought them, they install them. Drones and eVTOLs, cargo drones and eVTOLs to land on them. And so then we have another opportunity for as part of our business model, which is to then help them operate those infrastructure assets that they've now bought, right? So why would a city know how to operate 100 airports in and around Coventry and the neighbouring cities? So we can help them operate those new assets, and then we can also add further assets, but we can also then bring in our partners, our world's strongest ecosystem that we're building, to actually bring new areas of revenue for us, which is not only based on the aerial vehicles that are flying, but also on non-aeronautical revenues as well. And at the same time, all of this, we're kind of trying to connect civil aviation, connecting the skies, connecting to cities where these drones will fly, land them on the ground safely, but then connect all of that as a service to you as a consumer via the Urban Airport app. So, and that's the whole thing, right, which I started off with, which is we can help you build the air infrastructure, the ground infrastructure, and the digital infrastructure. So there are multiple sources of revenue for us that are recurring, which is great. But it all starts with selling these units and putting them in the right place for our cities to solve their pain points and for developers to solve their pain points.
Well, let's just go to the consumer now. I mean, what are the likely costs to travelling passengers? I mean, will they be paying a premium for the convenience that you offer and the sustainability it provides?
So, if you talk about an air taxi, so the goal for the OEMs and for us is to make this accessible to everybody. And that's why we're really excited about the partnership with the Motor Group and Supernal, because that is absolutely their primary objective, to make this accessible for all. Now, when new technologies emerge, there's always going to be, a price barrier to begin with because the demand won't be there. So we expect that, prices for journeys will start being, between, £50 and £100. But that's £1,500 to fly maybe from London to Coventry, which will take 20 minutes. So the value of that is significantly higher because you're gaining time. We'll be able to make city communities buy them time and be more productive, which is great for the economy, right? So that's one aspect. But then as demand grows, and because of our low footprint solution, which directly equates to low capex. So airports, when you think about an airport, you immediately think huge amounts of space and very expensive. We take up very little space, and we're working very, very hard with our modular prefabricated system that is, that can fit into really compact sites, and therefore it comes with a low initial outlay. So that benefit can be passed on to the consumer as well. And that's how we're going to drive prices down. And the goal is to make this, as accessible as we're used to today by using Uber and our kind of, ride-hailing apps. That's the ultimate goal. And then it becomes a viable solution. It becomes actually a solution fixing a real problem, as opposed to just another layer of mobility just for a select few. That's not That's not our goal. And that's why, again, in Coventry, which is really important, we're next door. We're literally 60-second walk from the mainline railway station. And that complementary kind of intermodal, seamless, zero-emission opportunity is only possible because of our solution being so compact. So the whole goal here is to make this accessible for all. And as a business, for us, we'll be charging landing charges to the OEMs, and other charges that come from handling their vehicles, and helping consumers book their tickets via our infrastructure. So there's a whole ecosystem that we're building, and a lot of that will be revealed, or parts of that, some of the key parts that will be revealed in Coventry to demystify advanced air mobility.
Well, the good thing is you won't be having to worry about negotiating with low-cost carriers. That's for sure. But if I could,
exactly.
If I could just move on and talk specifically about the retail and the food and beverage offering that will be located. Let's work on Coventry for a moment. What will you be delivering there? I mean, how different will the look of retail be, for example?
It's a really good question. It's really exciting. I'm really, really thrilled that we've got Keith Hunter, who's a former senior vice president of Qatar Airways Duty Free, QDF. He's our chief retail officer, and we've also got Nick Goddard-Palmer. He used to work with Nick at QDF, and he's our chief hospitality officer. And these guys, they built one of the world's best retail centers, retail businesses in Qatar. And so their expertise and their knowledge is going to be vital for us. And our goal is to, move travel retail forward. So we have in the urban airport in Coventry, we'll have the Urban Airport Cafe. And the Urban Airport Cafe will look very different. But at the same time, it will serve macchiatos. It will serve you drinks and croissants. And we have a whole menu lined up. And again, as part of that, building the world's strongest ecosystem, we have some of the world's largest brands in hospitality who will be working with us, which we're going to be revealing very soon. And they'll be helping us operate that cafe. So we provide, an extremely high quality service from the Urban Airport Cafe for our guests and visitors. And even though you might be, ultimately you might be kind of, connecting from the train, and going through very quickly through the urban airport to get your air taxi, there will always be opportunities to grab a coffee, grab a drink. You might be being dropped off by someone. So there's a massive non-aeronautical revenue opportunity there. But at the same time,
it'd be good to see some local brands too, though, not just the franchises.
Absolutely, yeah, and franchises, they'll have a space as the industry grows, but it is you're exactly right. So in traditional airports, it's very hard for small brands and local brands to enter, airports because of the various, financial mechanisms and contractual arrangements with, the minimum annual guarantees and such.
Exactly.
So what we're able to do is work with local brands, with upcoming younger brands, and bring them in. But at the same time, we're also able to attract some of the world's biggest brands as well, because brands need to keep they need to keep their existing customers, but they need to keep attracting new customers year on year. And so they're all looking for new ways to do that. And urban air mobility and advanced air mobility gives them an opportunity both physically to showcase their product. And I think that's going to be exciting in urban airport when you guys come and have a look. We'll have brands present physically in the urban airport, but they won't be, these huge stores that we're all used to in big airports. That's not the future that we foresee. We foresee brands just showcasing their latest product, so you can engage with it, you can touch it, and you're getting exposure to the brand. But then what's also really exciting is those brands, they really want to be on our app, right? So they will then be able to expose their products uniquely through the Urban Airport app. So when you take off on your air taxi, you're taking the brand with you. It's in your pocket, it's on your phone, and you can continue that experience on your journey when you connect at the other end. But the whole opportunity here is not just about hospitality and traditional retail in terms of the brands that I've just kind of been describing. There are a whole host of other services, and so what we've done is create a new brand ourselves, which is a subsidiary brand of Urban Airport called Urban Air Choice. And Urban Air Choice will allow you to via the app or in person, buy your coffee and croissant and so on. It will allow you to get a discount on the latest, most sustainable brands T-shirt or trainers design, or whoever we reveal in a few weeks to you guys. But it will also enable you to charge your car. It will also enable you to connect an onward journey. It will also enable you to engage with other services that we're offering, region by region and location by location. So that's a really unique.
It's an integrated loyalty program. It's an integrated loyalty program, effectively.
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to create an advanced air mobility membership, right? So even if you are not flying because you don't want to fly, don't need to fly, you can still come to an urban airport. You can still engage with an urban airport, and you can still, for us, we want you to, spend money at an urban airport as well. And we think that's why the Urban Air Choice fleet of services could range from EV charging, onward connections, tours around the city, even connecting with hotel partners as well. So there's a whole host of services. We want to make it easy and seamless, all in one place. And so that's what we're building. So a full ecosystem, which will become very, very valuable in the future.
Because the whole idea of urban air mobility is still very new, particularly to a very conservative industry that is travel retail. Are you finding that you're literally having to go the extra mile, no pun intended, by actually educating them about what is possible to do that is genuinely new to cater to the new traveller that's going to go through your airport, your vertiport, forgive me?
Yeah, so we're having to fly the extra mile, but yeah, no, look, when we started speaking to brands, of course it was during COVID, and so a lot of brands, a lot of airports are all, everyone's struggling through COVID, and so that made it a little bit harder. But over the last year, and through a lot of effort, that team have put in, and Keith and Nick, particularly. It's been a story that, it starts with, kind of information, a bit of education, and then, it's showing them what's possible. And then seeing our kind of press announcements has helped, because then, people can tangibly start to understand that this is actually coming and there is a real opportunity. And so, yes, it's been hard, but, we're not afraid of that.
Now, I guess this is the crunch question, is that in spite of everything you've said, you've clearly got some of your own pain points. What are the major challenges that you're facing when it comes to trying to open up new spaces, new areas for where vertiports can be placed, even dealing with the local civil aviation authority? Where are the pain points at the moment, and how are you getting over them?
Yeah, so the pain points are, nothing's impossible, and this is emerging technology. This is pioneering stuff, and so one of the biggest hurdles for the industry will be getting the vehicles certified, and that's what the OEMs are focused on. That's what Supernal is focused on, and so those vehicles and those certification programs, some are quite aggressive, some are aiming for 2024. Which is 2 years from now. Some are aiming for 2028, including Supernal, who are not in it to be the first. Supernal and folks like Airbus have openly said, this is not a race. This is something that needs to be done safely and responsibly. So we have a variety of certification strategies, and so we need those to successfully be approved. But civil aviation authorities, around the world, UK, the US, and EASA in Europe, they're supporting those companies to get certified, right? So there is commitment from the regulators and the governments to make this industry real. So that's one thing. From our perspective, we also have to work with the civil aviation authorities because, we're the airport operator, we're the airport provider. So that airspace has to integrate with our air traffic zone on the ground. And on the ground is where we have to also do the hard yards and work with cities and work with developers. And so integrating any kind of infrastructure in any city is never straightforward. But the upside here is, we're not trying to integrate a tram system that's going to sever parts of cities. We're not trying to integrate a new railway system or a high-speed rail system. That is big, heavy infrastructure. we're kind of scoring lines in the sky, and that's why our relationship with civil aviation authorities is really important. So it's a very sustainable way to build a road. It's a road in the sky that's certified and safe and regulated, and then it's that touch point where you land and take off from. And so the benefit that we also have is because of, again, our kind of technology-driven compact solution, it makes it easier for cities and their communities to adopt our solution, because we can very nimbly fit in. We can fit in at grades, we can fit in on rooftop, and I think that's something which is really important, and that relates directly to what will be, and has always been throughout history, one of the biggest challenges with new technologies is taking the public with us, right? So the public acceptance, and that's the key thing. And again, we're the only company in the world who are making our vertiport, that we call an urban airport, making it open and accessible to the public. So we're going to have structured viewings and structured tours, but we want people to come and see, kick the tires, touch the vehicle, buy a coffee, and really feel what this is going to be like. Because there's been some great ideas in the past, but because they haven't been accepted or adopted by the public, because they just haven't been able to fathom them, they haven't come to fruition. And so that is something that we are absolutely laser focused on with some of our partners, our city partners, to make sure that that is something that we avoid. And that's why we're spending huge amounts of money and time and effort in our PR to make sure that we take your followers, your readers, and others around the world with us on this journey as we demystify something which people aren't used to, which is advanced air mobility. So those are some of the challenges. But again, we're overcoming them. We're on site. We broke ground. We didn't break ground. We touched ground because we don't need to break ground, and it's really exciting. So we're actually getting on and getting it done.
Is there a level of air clutter which you need to avoid when you have these conversations with the Civil Aviation Authority? Because you just talk about all the different areas of deliverables that could be using the sky. Is clutter going to become an issue, potentially?
Well, look, I mean, at the moment, definitely not. And the way that this industry will start is by having air corridors, right? Kind of routes from A to B to C, and that will then evolve into a network. And we're working on what potentially could be the world's first network again here in the UK. And that, it's the same. I mean, speaking to folks here, people have a car, you can drive that car anywhere, right? Even you can drive it in the desert where I am right now. You can drive it over the grass. You can drive it on the pavement. You can drive it everywhere. But the rules are that you drive it on the road. There are traffic lights. There are roundabouts. There's a structured infrastructure. And there are rules that you have to abide by when you're driving your car. And so for advanced air mobility, it will be the same. The vehicle has to be certified, which is equivalent to having an MOT. You've got to have your insurance. There's got to be the infrastructure, and for us, we have the ground infrastructure. And then, that includes the road. Instead of having, carbon intensive, roads as we know them today, we'll have an invisible road, which is in the sky, but it's a defined route. It's a regulated route. And so through using 4G and 5G technologies, we can always know where that vehicle in the sky is, when it's approaching our urban airport at one end or the other end, and when it's on flight. So that there's a regulation that is really important. And I think, if there are too many vehicles, too many eVTOLs on a certain route because demand's increasing, then that route will need to adopt and evolve to accommodate that. But the good thing about that is it doesn't mean we have to build 5 more lanes, take up more squares of city. So it's a very nimble way to add another layer of mobility without columns and bridges and tunnels and so on. So going towards a net zero age, we can build this infrastructure significantly cheaper, far more sustainable. And then obviously as the demand grows, as the public acceptance grows, because we make it affordable and accessible, then of course, the industry will evolve to make sure that we don't have any clutter. And it's a usable, and as I've always said, it's a viable and sustainable solution.
Just drawing the threads together, though, if there were 3 things that you wanted to say to the business community, what would they be?
Well, I think the first thing is, to come and visit us. in Coventry at Air One, and really fathom for the first time, really in the world, what this industry could look like and what it could mean for you. I would also encourage businesses to really take this seriously, because we all have a responsibility to decarbonize. And so whether you're a logistics company, whether you're a whatever business you are, if you've got commuters coming to your offices, if you're a housing developer, how do people get to you? How do they get from you? And so how can we improve that journey, that quality of life for the commuter, for your resident, but also for the neighbouring residents, and also for the city and the built environment as a whole. So I would seriously encourage that. And then I would say, don't be afraid, because just because it hasn't been done before, just because we're not used to it, don't be afraid, because it's coming. It could be really revolutionary. It can transform how we live. It can transform our cities. It can help clean our air. And I think if I can add a fourth to that, I think everyone's excited about electric cars, and that's great, right? Because EVs, electric cars, have zero emission in the tailpipe. That is fantastic, because there's some nasty toxins that come out of tailpipes. But what electric vehicles still have is rubber tires, and they still have brakes. And it's proven that electric vehicle brake dust is actually more from an electric vehicle than a regular vehicle. And rubber tire particulate is the most polluting plastic, most polluting material in our oceans. And the two combined are the most polluting particulates in our city atmosphere. So electric cars do a lot. They're very helpful from helping us decarbonize. But there's a lot more we need to tackle to get cleaner and better quality air and better quality city environments. And with more and more people moving to cities, which is that global trend, which COVID won't be able to stop, as we all learn to live with COVID, there's more people coming to cities, living in cities. We need to make sure that we make our cities viable and healthy for longer, because without cities, our economies will seriously suffer.
A good point on which to end the interview. Ricky Sandhu, thank you for your time.
Thanks so much.